There's something very, very unusual in this week's Parsha. So, of course, we're following the story of Jacob, and Jacob had a twin, Esau, very different brothers. One wants to sit in the tent and study. One wants to go out in the field. One is Tom, he's wholesome. He is full of integrity. And the other one is a bit deceptive. Tzayid befiv, there's deception and trickery in his mouth. And he deceives his father, making his father believe that he's really righteous. And these two are really at odds. They're just not compatible. When one's up, the other's down. Even in utero, they were jostling about with each other. And as we know, the story goes that Jacob was really compelled against his will to to usurp the blessings of his brother. Isaac wants to give a blessing to Esau. Rebekah understands prophetically that it must go to Jacob. And Jacob is compelled against his will to go have to impersonate his brother and steal the blessings, which he does. Esau finds out about it. He's not happy. He commits himself to actually kill his brother, and Jacob has to flee. And he flees to the house of Laban, and he spends 20 years there. And after 20 years with Laban, he emerges unscathed. He has 4 wives and 12 children, 11 sons, and 1 daughter, Dinah. And he's going back. And he's going to encounter his brother, Esau, who is still hopping mad, very mad, and still has very evil designs. And he meets him, and he, of course, prepares. He sends the gift, the bribe. He sends him the tribute, and he bows before him 7 times. And he flatters him, and miraculously he's saved. And then Esau says, well, actually, let's live together like one big harmonious family. And he says, no, it's not a good idea. We'll get together eventually. I'll send you a postcard. And our sages tell us that's a reference to the times of Messiah. There will be a reunion of Jacob and Esau in the times of Messiah. Of course, the final conflict in the times of Messiah will be Jacob against Esau. Until then, we cannot wage war against Esau. But eventually there'll be a showdown. And according to some of the commentaries, there will be a reclamation of Esau in the end. Regardless, he's past that challenge. And he moves on to the other challenge. His daughter Dinah, she is abducted. And he finds out about it. He's very disappointed. But he doesn't really do anything about it. He kind of is stoic about it. He just accepts it. And then his sons get involved and they pull off the ruse. Well, sure you can marry Dinah. No problem. Just circumcise you and everyone in the town. And they, of course, they follow. They all circumcise. And they're all lying in bed, all bloody and weak. And these 2 teenagers, actually one of them was 12 and one was 13, they go and they slaughter every male in the city. And of course, there's lots of questions. How is that justified? How is that not wanton murder? That's a lot of literature about that. But regardless, Jacob's disappointed with them, and he actually curses their wrath and their rage at the end of his life. But regardless, he has to flee again, and they're traveling, and we read about God renames Jacob Israel, and Benjamin's born, and Rachel dies, and he reunites with his father, and then Isaac dies at the age of 180, and is buried by Jacob and Esau. That's like the Parsha. It's a long Parsha, but it ends with 42 verses that detail all the chronicles of Esau. His children, his wives, their travels, the cities that they lived in, the chieftains and the kings that they became. It's a very extensive detailing of the formidable empire of Esau. And it's a little complicated because there's a lot of incest and consanguinity in the family of Esau. You kind of need to be a genealogist to map out the whole family tree. Either that or you have to use ChatGPT to map it all out because it's really complicated. All these people are marrying each other. It's very incestuous. But that's really the end of the story of Esau. You know, we have Parshas told us he's born and they're jostling and they're fighting and there's the sale of the birthright and so on. but we don't really hear from him after this point. This is like the wrapping up of his story. The rest of the Torah is going to focus on Jacob and his family. Jacob, also renamed Israel, and his nation that he founded. And Rashi tells us that there's a desire to kind of wrap up one part of the story very, very, very quickly so you can focus on the next part of the story. This is what we see a pattern throughout the whole book of Genesis. We have a story of Adam, and then run, just through generations, through hundreds of years, all the way to your Rabbi Noah. Tell the story of Noah and the details, and because that's like this is an important milestone of the story, and then run all the way till we reach the generation of Abraham. And then once you meet Abraham, we hear his story in detail. Like we don't know, we just know like names and ages and so on of all the people between Noah and Abraham. Why? Because the Torah's focus is not on that. It's important to have a certain sense of placement and a sense of closure, so we do very quickly run through it, but it's not expanded upon, it's not elaborated upon. Similarly, here we have this enormous empire of Esau, all his sons and the cities that they lived in and so on, the wars that they waged, the displacement of other nations that they succeeded to pull off. But then it's over. And Rashi tells us it's almost like if you're sifting, you're sifting. There's a diamond in the rough, a diamond in the sand. So you want the diamond. There's lots of rocks, little pebbles and all this useless stuff. There's one diamond. So you're sifting quickly to get through to find the diamond. Similarly, we have Jacob, we have Esau, we have all the family of Esau. Just very quickly want to get through it so that we can clear away all the other things and focus on the diamond, focused on Jacob. Sift through everything else until you are left with just the gem. Now, most people, even those who know the Torah really well, they can't really delineate the whole family of Esau. Family, it's like it's the end of the parsha. I always have this little game I like to play. How does this parsha end? How does it end? What happens? What happens next? What happens next? What happens next? Everyone just forgets about it. It's a whole chapter in Genesis, chapter 36, and they don't remember it, and they don't remember any of the names and the storylines. It's like at the end of the parsha, and it's a long parsha until you arrive at that, and everyone kind of forgets about this whole section. Now you open up the Kabbalistic literature, and they always find allusions and allegories in the most unusual places. So the Zohar gives extensive treatment, and it's very, very lofty. All sorts of secrets are hidden in the story and the chronicles of Esau. And I always say it's not a bad place to hide it. You want to hide something, all you do is, there's this joke, you want to hide something on the internet, put it on the second page of Google, because no one goes past the first page. You have 1,000 pages of a Google search, everyone looks at the first page and that's it. You put on the second page, it's hidden, might as well not exist. Similarly, people, I'm saying not to compare anything to the Torah, but it's very hard for people to know they don't know much about this part of the Torah. But if you look at it very carefully, you find something very unusual. In chapter 36, it starts off with the chronicles of Esau. And it identifies him in a very unusual way. It tells us that Esau is Edom. One of the names of Esau is Edom. What does Edom mean? Well, Edom is the name of a nation. And Edom is kind of the nickname of Esau. It starts off, these are the chronicles of Esau. Well, Esau is Jacob's brother. Who Edom? He is Edom. So that's just an interesting note that it identifies him with that title, that he is Edom. If you read chapter 36, you will discover that it repeats this motif again and again and again and again. So, for example, in verse 8, it says that Esau, he settled in Mount Seir. Vayeshev Esau Esau settled Behar Seir, in Mount Seir. That's where he lived. And then the verse ends, Esau, hu Edom. Esau is Edom. So the exact identification that we had in verse 1, Esau hu Edom, is repeated in verse 8. Esau hu Edom. And that's a very unusual thing, because we know that. It's only 8 verses, 7 verses ago. And then verse 9, the very next verse, Ve'ela told us Esau, these are the chronicles of Esau, Avi Edom, the father of Edom, Bihar Seir, on Mount Seir. So there's like a certain repetition of this motif. Esau is Edom. Verse 19, Ela b'nei Esau, these are the sons of Esau. Ve'ela alufeim, and these are their chieftains. Who Edom, he is Edom. Again, this idea that we know, Esau is Edom, it says it again and again and again and again. At the very end of the whole delineation of the family, the last words, it talks about the different chieftains that he spawned. Who Esau, he is Esau, Avi Edom, the father of Edom. And it's an interesting question. You read it and you notice that it's very, very strange to be told this thing again and again and again and again. We know Esau is Edom. That's his name. That's his title. That's his moniker. We got it. Tell me once, that's enough. Why is it repeated again and again and again and again? Now, if you ask most people, why is Esau called Edom? A lot of people make a mistake. The first thing we're told about Esau is that he's Admoni. Admoni means he's ruddy. He's reddish. The word Edom means red. So some people say, well, Edom is the name of Esau because he's red. Edom means red. Esau is red. That's why he's called red. But that's not the reason why he's called Edom. The Torah tells us Jacob was making a stew, a red lentil stew. And Esau, he arrived from the field and he was tired. And he says, feed me like you feed a camel. Pour it down my throat from this red stuff. Haliteni na min ha'adom hazeh. Pour it down my throat, this red stuff. Says the Torah, Al Kain, therefore, Kara Shmo Edom. He is called Edom. This episode, Esau as a teenager is hungry, is tired, and he tells Jacob, I will open my mouth and you pour the whole thing down my throat. The same way you feed camels. That's why he's called Edom. Now, why is this a fitting name for Esau? So the commentaries tell us that it's a name of ridicule. The Ramban says it's a name of ridicule. Look at Esau. He sold his priceless birthright in exchange for a red dish. That's something to mock and ridicule. And the commentaries also add, he was a glutton. And it's a criticism of Esau that he became so impoverished spiritually in exchange for something so trivial, so small. So it's the name of derision. He's called Edom because of this terrible blunder that he made. It's also interesting, if you, the commentaries tell us, if you think about food, right? We all have to eat food. And sometimes some people even like food. They enjoy it. Not just because they need to eat it, but because it's tasty. I'm a foodie. That's who I am. And some people like food because it's healthy. Got to get my macros in. Gluten-free, cage-free, free range. People like food for a lot of different reasons. But the lowest way to describe a food, you can say it's healthful, you could say it's tasty. The lowest way is just by the color. It's red. Like, that's the most superficial description of any food. So it's almost a sign of the superficiality of Esau. He doesn't care about what's beneath the surface. He just cares about the color. It's a sign of short-sightedness. I'll exchange everything, a priceless birthright, for food, and it's a sign of superficiality, and that's why he's known in infamy as Edom. Now, Esau didn't have to be a villain, according to the Midrash. He could have, maybe should have been one of the forefathers. There were supposed to be four forefathers: Abram, Isaac, Jacob, Esau. Just as there are four patriarchs: Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. And the plan was that Esau, with all of his earthliness and man of the fieldness, he was supposed to be the fourth of this quartet. Abram was going to marry Sarah, and Isaac, Rebecca, and Jacob, Rachel. And Esau was supposed to marry Leah. That was the plan. And they were supposed to work in harmony. Jacob in the tent and Esau out in the field. Work together to advance the agenda of Abraham. Work alongside Jacob in a symbiotic relationship. Esau would be a man of the field, sure. But he would use all of his talents and all of his abilities to advance the general cause of Abraham. That was the plan. And that's why you notice that Esau sort of does have a little bit of a foothold amongst this family. His head actually was buried in the cave of the patriarchs. He was supposed to be a great person, but he became small. He became diminished. And why did he become diminished? Because of this episode, the Midrash says. He sold his birthright. He made this decision, this very poor, short-sighted decision to distance himself from greatness in exchange for something very, very trivial. Now, when did this happen? According to our math, it happened when Jacob and Esau twins, they were 15. That's the day that Abraham died. Abraham was 175 when he died, and he was 160 when they were born. So Jacob and Esau are born when Abraham is 160. He dies at 175, they're 15. Esau, when he was 15, made a very poor decision. But Esau lived a very long life. He was 147 when he passed, because he died at the same age as Jacob did. You remember when they were trying to bury Jacob, Esau was stopping them, and he was decapitated by Hushim, son of Dan. What happened with Esau since he was 15? The next 132 years of his life. That's what we read in chapter 36. He built a family, a dynasty. And when it starts off, it introduces him as Edom. And you read about his storyline. And you read about all the children he had and the lands he conquered and the chieftains that he spawned and the wealth that he accumulated. And in every stage of Esau's greatness, it reiterates, he's Edom. He's still labeled as Edom. You read about his family. He had wives. He had children. He had possessions. He had an empire. And he moved from Canaan to Mount Seir. And it says, Esau is Edom. When someone has children, they have a family, they have wealth, that's an opportunity to change. You don't have to be the same person you were when you were a teenager. You could change. You could expand your perception of self. You don't have to be the same small person that you were. Torah's telling us, Esau started off as Edom. He was 15, he became Edom. He got married, 3 wives, many, many children, lots of wealth. Did he change? Did he take the opportunity to reinvent himself? He is still Edom. He had sons and grandsons and great-grandsons. And they each formed empires, dynasties. Each were chieftains. Each were powerful leaders. And again, the verse tells us, these are the sons of Esau. These are the chieftains of Esau. He is Edom. It continues by telling us that there were different dynasties in the area, different kings in the area. 8 different kings came from Esau. And nevertheless, the story ends. Edom. He is still Edom. Esau was afforded many opportunities to change, to reinvent himself, to transition and transform himself from being small and petty and superficial into becoming great, into fulfilling his destiny. He got married. That's a big change. He became a father. That's a big change. He accumulated wealth. That's an enormous change. He moved, he relocated from Canaan to Mount Seir. He spawned dynasties and chieftains, powerful, influential people. Kings emerged from him. But the same foolish boy who was mesmerized by red soup remained. He is Edom. His accomplishments did not shake his pettiness. He remained small. And therefore the Torah, after every stage of Esau's progressions, developments, every development that could have, that should have been a catalyst for Esau to free himself from that label of smallness of Edom, the Torah repeats, he didn't take the opportunity. He remained Edom. The Torah hints and the Talmud explains that when a person gets married, all of their sins are forgiven. And the source of that, what's the source of this idea, is Esau himself. Esau himself, his wife is called Basmas, but in one place she's called Machlas. Those are different words, Basmas and Machlas. The word Machlas means Machal, means to forgive. Esau, he got married, he was forgiven for all of his sins. All of his sins were washed away. Every one of them. Why? Every person gets married, their sins are forgiven. Why? You're a new person now. You were half a person then, now you're a full person. You're a new person, it's an opportunity for a fresh start. But Esau remained Edom. He became a father. What does it mean to be a father? It means to be a partner with God. Every child has 3 partners: father, mother, God. When a person experiences parenthood, it's like a responsibility upon their shoulder. There's another human here that's dependent upon me. They can't be the same small person they were previously. It's an opportunity for reinvention. But nevertheless, Esau remained Edom. And he moved from Canaan to Mount Seir. The Talmud tells us that when someone moves, they relocate, it cleanses all their sins. Why? Because it's a way to reinvent yourself. You know, when you're in a certain place and you find your certain niche and this is who you are, you move, it's an opportunity to have a fresh, clean slate. He moved! It's an opportunity for Esau to shed his identity as Edom, as that same small young boy that made such a poor decision. But he moved, and he remained. As infantile as ever, he remained Edom. And his children became parents. He became a grandfather. He became a great-grandfather. He saw his children become chieftains and warriors and leaders and kings. But fundamentally, he remained with the same flaws as he was when he was 15 and Jacob was stewing lentils. Esau is Edom, forever refusing to change, forever refusing to reinvent himself, resistant to all these opportunities, all these catalysts, all these impetuses to change. That's what the Torah is telling us. Esau, he made poor decisions, and the Torah is telling us that the Almighty positioned him many times, repeatedly, again and again and again, in situations that could have been used as a catalyst for reinvention. But unfortunately, Esau maintained his smallness and pettiness, and from beginning to end, he is Edom. I think this is a very interesting lesson for us. We read this story, we read the families of Esau and the chieftains of Esau and the movements of Esau and the whole narrative, very long, 43 verses in our parsha. And again, we're told Esau is Edom. This is a lesson to us about Esau, but it's also a lesson to us about ourselves. We kind of find our groove in life. And hopefully it's a good groove, right? It's a good groove. We do good things, make good choices, try to prioritize good things, try to have certain values and priorities in life that are good. But the truth is, so long as we're alive, we're supposed to improve. We're supposed to upgrade. We're supposed to change. We're not supposed to be static, ever. We're supposed to become better, greater. And even Moshe, the greatest who ever lived, he wanted to live longer. Why? So he can become even greater. Certainly if someone has made poor decisions, it's important to fix those. Even if you make good decisions, make better decisions, live a higher life, a more refined life, a more elevated life. And sometimes the Almighty gives us opportunities. And the story of Esau shows us a cautionary tale of someone who did not use any of those opportunities. There are these outstanding moments in life where a person can really change. Esau became a parent. If someone has the great privilege of becoming a parent, that can be a life-changing experience. A grandparent, a great-grandparent. Every juncture in life is a fresh opportunity for self-reinvention. You relocate, a different city, different community, different job. This is like a splendid opportunity to reinvent yourself. To say, I don't have to have the same standards I had previously. They don't even know me. No one knows me. I'm new. I'm fresh. It's like a new birth almost on some level. Let's use that opportunity. You see your children grow and mature. It's an opportunity. But Esau, despite having plenty of opportunities, he remained Edom. And I think one of the lessons that we should take is that there are going to be opportunities in our life. That we're not Esau, okay? We're not wicked. But even we have opportunities to improve, to elevate. How do I know? I know for sure because that's the nature of humanity. There's always room to improve, always. And if Moshe had room to improve, so do we. The greatest who ever lived has had room to improve, so do we. And really, that's really what we do every day. Every single day we're trying to do that. But there are these outstanding moments in life, these milestones in life, that are opportunities to say, I am no longer the same person I was yesterday. I'm a new person. And if you're aware of that, take the opportunity. Exploit the opportunity to make sure that you don't make the same mistake that Esau is Edom. He is Edom. From the age of 15 to the age of 147, he is Edom. He, as I joke, he wasn't ready to change. He wasn't ready. That is a lesson for us. A lot of people, they get into a certain pattern. This is who I am. This is who I am. Don't like it, take it or leave it. This is who I am. That is channeling Esau. This is who I am. I was always like this. I will always be like that. Those words are the words of Esau. Esau is Edom. We don't want to be that. We can change, we must change, we ought to change, and there are opportunities for us to reinvent ourselves. We will have those opportunities. May we be so fortunate to exploit all those opportunities and to not be the same small person that we were when we started this grand journey.